All right, joining me once again here on the Matthew Filipowicz Show is my good friend Gaius Publius. Gaius is a writer for numerous outlets including Digby, Down with Tyranny, Naked Capitalism, and more, all of which you can find at gaiuspublius.tumblr.com. You can also follow him on Twitter at Gaius_Publius. Gaius, thank you so much for being on the show again.
It's always a pleasure, Matt. Thank you.
All right, so Gaius, you and I have discussed the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, many times on the show before, and there are actually a couple of updates I want to get to on the TPP. But before we get to the updates, in case listeners are not aware, give them a quick primer of what exactly the TPP is.
Well, TPP is NAFTA, except that instead of 3 countries, it's 20 countries. I may be off by 1 or 2. People are trying to join. Indonesia looks like it wants to join in, for example. 20 countries, they're all on the Pacific Rim. So we've got on the west coast of the United States, west coast of North and South America, we've got the United States, Mexico, Canada, a couple of the South American countries, and on the eastern rim of the Pacific, almost everything you care about but China, and I don't think Burma is involved as well. Australia, New Zealand, the usual suspects there. All of these countries would be involved in a trade agreement, so-called trade agreement, which is really a property and corporate profit protection scheme involving all of these countries, in which they would set up a NAFTA-like tribunal to make sure that no company was denied profit by any country that it could otherwise get if that country didn't act to get in the way. And the companies would be protected from any interference by government. There's a whole bunch of complicated things, including, for example, just to give one example, intellectual property includes things like patents on drugs. India has led the way in terms of getting drugs to the generic state. That would be outlawed under the IP protection and the farmer protections of TPP. It would be horrible. The jobs would flow to Asia even faster than they're flowing today. It would be a disaster. In the same way NAFTA is a disaster.
Yeah, absolutely. Another kind of big example that I always like to cite. So say a community or a state passes a fracking ban. Theoretically, a multinational corporation could sue that state not in a court of law, but under a trade tribunal made up of corporate actors who would then theoretically be able to override that state's fracking ban. So this dirty energy company would be like, you know what, I want to frack here, and the state says, no, we don't want you to frack here. Then instead of going to an actual court or anything like that, they would go to a tribunal, and theoretically this pact would have the ability to actually override state law. It really is an override of country sovereignty and the sovereignty of states.
Absolutely. These tribunals, by the way, are similar to forced arbitration in all the contracts you sign these days. If you look at these credit card contracts, these purchase agreement contracts, your contract with Apple, your contract with your refrigerator repair company, you'll find out that you give up your right to go to court because you've signed yourself into forced arbitration. Forced arbitration means a bunch of people who appear before arbitrators at some point in their career representing companies are chosen as arbitrators at other points in their career. They're not going to decide against the company in favor of citizens. In the same way, as Elizabeth Warren has said, when companies are suing companies, they can pick corporate lawyers as arbitrators. But when companies are suing countries, all the money is on the corporate side. So the people who sit in as judges in these tribunals are basically corporate lawyers who will appear before the next tribunal, both of which both of these services, they charge a fee. They know which side of the bread the butter's on.
Right. One aspect of these the TPP is also the fact that it is being negotiated in secret. What Obama has been asking the Congress to do is actually to have fast track authority, so the Congress doesn't actually have a chance to really dig into it or do any amendments to it. I want to bring up one of the things you've written several posts on recently, Gaius, is a supposed, I'm going to put in air quotes around this, progressive group that is essentially doing AstroTurf work for the TPP. Tell us about them.
Well, these are, for starters, ex-Obama campaign alumni for the most part. This is a group called 270 Strategies. 270 being the number of electoral votes it takes to win the presidency. No, it's not 270 degrees, so they've turned you around and fooled you 3/4 of the way, which is what I originally thought. They're the people behind the Ro Khanna, for example, campaign against Mike Honda in the last election cycle. Mike Honda being a genuine progressive from the Silicon Valley of California, Ro Khanna being to the right of him and pushing in his ads that Mike Honda is too liberal for California. Well, that's 270 strategies. They've apparently set up, it's not just an AstroTurf group, it's not a group at all. Yeah. I think this organization doesn't exist. They've now hired, by the way, some executive director. I see there's somebody recently on their payroll, but you can't find corporate headquarters for them that isn't a Dropbox. You can't find the IP registration headquarters for them. That's in Canada. IP meaning their IP address, their website is registered through an anonymizer in Canada. So this group doesn't exist. They're pretending to be, they call themselves a progressive coalition for American jobs. Dave Johnson has done a very good job of pointing out that they're not progressive. They're not a coalition. There are 0 groups in their coalition. There's nothing American about them. And they're not about jobs unless you talk about jobs in Asia for the billionaires of the international corporations.